The Richard Simmons Show will not be seen tonight, so we may bring you our movie special, Stalag 17.
A message from Big Snoop Deal Double G to all the university students. Yo, syllabus. You gotta do it. You gotta read it. Man, I'm telling you, the more you know, the further you go. Tell them Snoop Dogg sent you. Syllabus. I know all about it. Catch up so we can have a conversation. Don't be late. Let's go.
There will always be a special place in my heart for the movie musical and for the songs that create their most memorable moments. Here to perform the Oscar-nominated, gorgeously empowering song, Let It Go, from the Oscar-winning animated movie Frozen, please welcome the wickedly talented one and only Adele Dazeem.
Weehawken, New Jersey.
Hello, Mr. Bell?
Yes.
All right, I got a couple things to say for you. I need to have some clarification on the fact that you don't believe you're talking about the government covering up UFOs and how they're trying to deceive us, and you're always talking about that. Then you try to come on and double talk us by saying that you don't think we're responsible for the government.
No, I say that we are the government.
Wait, what make up your mind? What do you mean we are the government? If we are the government, then why would they hide things from us? They are not hiding anything from us.
Even our founding fathers, sir, when they wrote that wonderful document we all live by,
yes, the most wonderful piece of paper in this entire planet,
cautioned us to keep our eye on them and put in all kinds of protections because,
well, I don't think
excuse me, now let me finish and then you can go, okay?
All right.
And put in all kinds of protections specifically so because they understood that the government could get out of control.
Well, it could, and it might, and it would. It is not out of control. Our government is a great and beautiful thing. And people like you who try to tear it down and who try to rip down the foundations of our nation by purporting Bigfoot. I mean, I can't believe you. Bigfoot. You're a grown man and you're taking this serious.
I love it.
What is wrong with you?
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future for our children.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
Here's the fun fact I learned, and I didn't learn this from a Snapple bottle cap, believe it or not. So, kangaroos. You know kangaroos, right?
I'm not going to believe it if it didn't come from Snapple.
It's from a reliable source called the internet, social media. Oh, it's got to be. I'm sure there are sources. But here's the kangaroos. If you get into a fight with a kangaroo, and I don't care who started it, if you get into a fight with a kangaroo,
you will lose.
Here's what they will do. A kangaroo will try to lure you into a body of water, and they'll drown you. That's how they win. Now, I don't know why we just found this out. Shouldn't we have known this before? Couldn't we have saved a lot of lives of people who thought they were just getting into normal fights with kangaroos and find themselves
Are there
being
lots
drowned?
of bodies of water in the Australian outback just randomly about?
Probably not. Well, there must be. Must be enough. I mean, I guess ask a kangaroo.
If your source is true, then there should be. Put that on the list. Get out your best crayon.
There must be enough.
Did you look this up at all?
I did look this up. I got this from, I told you, a totally reliable source called the Internets.
Yeah.
And it was right there on the computer. It was right there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see there's a video, probably a few years old now, of a guy who's a kangaroo, is attacking his dog, and he punches him right in the face. The kangaroo looks just steps back, what? Is his expression on his face, that's not supposed to happen. Not supposed to punch me, and then he bounds off. He's fine. Everything was fine. The dog was fine. Everything, but the kangaroo had a hold of the dog when the video starts. He must have grabbed it, and the guy just walks up to the kangaroo, and boom, right in the nose.
The dog punched the kangaroo.
No, the dog's owner, the human, punched the kangaroo.
Yep.
Dog got away. Dog was the victim in all this. I assume. I don't know what the dog said to the kangaroo prior to, you never see the first part of the video, but you never see the setup. You just see the punches flying.
So as much as I hate to say this, the dog may have instigated
could have been
this situation.
Ooh, nice pouch. Ooh, what do you got in your pouch? That kind of thing, Dogs can be cruel.
I don't know.
They can be. They're not always, but they can be.
I don't know what universe you're living in. Doggies are not cruel.
Oh, no. Take that back.
What has this conversation digressed?
You call that a digression? I thought that was indigression.
Keep making up your own words.
I don't know.
Somebody call Merriam-Webster. Let's see what we can do here.
Oh, you know what? But here's the thing. Somebody believes it. It doesn't matter, right? I've said it. It's gone out into the ether, and now someone believes it.
You might want to say it 2 or 3 more times, reinforce. You know how that works.
That's probably a good idea.
I have them every here and there.
I should be writing these down, right?
Yes.
I should give you full credit for every good idea you...
Get a whole box of
crayons. I don't think a money incentive would be good, though. We shouldn't do a money incentive, because then...
Why? I could do a lot of good with the money. Tiger Woods got in an accident. Looks pretty brutal.
Ay. Wow, car accident, right?
Yeah. Debris. Long debris trail. Rolling. Had to use Jaws of Life, which is actually like rollerblades. And everybody would go inline skating, and they would say, I'm going rollerblading. I had a friend who was a firefighter who taught me that Jaws of Life is a name for a particular one. So they had another name because theirs were not Jaws of Life, but I don't recall what it was.
Like Q-tip.
Kleenex,
Brand
as
name.
opposed to facial
Kleenex,
tissue.
Right. You say, give me a tissue, yes.
Facial tissue, please.
No, Tiger, I don't follow golf, I'm proud to say, but didn't he kind of disappear after his, at least in the golf world, didn't he sort of disappear after the big problem he had with his wife and
For a while.
The last time he had a car problem?
He's been on a big comeback. He's done a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
I don't follow it closely, so that's kind of the extent. Although I did catch about the last half an hour of a documentary type show about him, which is how I know about the comeback and the other things. But since he's down right now, we don't know how serious it is.
I just saw a clip of him on the Mike Douglas show. Remember the Mike Douglas show?
Yeah, when he was a little tiny boy, and he...
Yeah, he's like 5, and he's like...
Oh, he's 3. He's 2 or 3. The putt with his dad? Yeah, he was just a toddler. Prodigy.
Yeah. The Mike Douglas show never gets the acclaim it should. I remember it was always on in the afternoon, and it seemed like in the 70s, it seemed like such a square show. He seemed so square that I think it was easy to make fun of. But looking back on it, this guy was really a good interviewer and brought a lot of people to America that they probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. And he was very open about different musical genres and such. He had John and Yoko on for an entire week one time, and they just basically took over the whole show.
Yeah, he was. I never really put any thought into it back in the day.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's sort of an unsung hero or I don't know hero, but he's sort of an unsung player in that. I mean, we think of Merv Griffin, we think of obviously Johnny Carson and Jack Parr and everybody that came after that, but I think Douglas served and the show was really long, as I remember. Wasn't it 3 hours or something? Or am I making that up? It seemed like it was a long show. Yeah, but he would have real discussions. I saw this clip of George C. Scott and Jack Valenti. Jack Valenti was the head of the MPAA at the time, and this was right when they were instituting the movie rating system, the G, the PG, all that. And they had a debate on it. George C. Scott was totally against any sort of rating system, and Jack Valenti. But it was a real debate. They never raised their voices once. They treated each other with complete respect. They got their points out. There was no arguing or talking over each other. They were both very passionate about what they thought. Very, very passionate. But looking at that, you think, what has become of public discourse? I mean, everything has to be an argument now.
Everyone has to be right. I'm still a little struck by the fact that the Earth is not flat. You know how that whole thing is.
It's not a fact if people believe the opposite, right? Isn't that what makes it not a fact? It's an opinion.
I don't know. Then what would actually be a fact? Because is there universal agreement on anything?
There actually isn't. There kind of isn't. I mean, it's easy to make fun, but there kind of isn't consensus on anything, really, these days.
Some people think death is good.
Right. I was talking about living in a simulation, and why not? I mean, you're walking around interacting with people who are living in absolutely different realities. I mean, crazy realities in some cases. But yeah, I don't know. But no, here's
realities. I can't even tell the whole story without getting permission from the others who were involved. But it is hilarious.
What if you leave out names?
Just know that it involves a giant catapult and catapulting certain things into the trees, and whoever's thing lands highest in the trees wins. The things would be the trespassers.
Okay.
It was a day and a half long exchange with 3 long-term friends, and it was, you have to know these people to understand how all of our sense of humor works together.
Wait, so you were catapulting things into other people's yards?
No, into the jungle.
People live in the jungle, don't they? Tarzan lives in the jungle.
Well, we were catapulting these things into the jungle for the jaguars.
Oh.
Yes.
We had see, I thought you were going in a different direction. I thought this was like a juvenile delinquency type of story.
No.
Because we did things like that in 7th grade.
You catapulted things into the jungle for the jaguars?
We didn't have a jungle, so we used the neighbors' yards.
Did you have jaguars?
We'd have jaguars, but we had...
Did you have a giant catapult?
We didn't have a catapult, nor a trebuchet.
So kind of your... This isn't...
well, here are the similarities.
This really isn't... No.
We
no,
threw
things. Really isn't.
We threw things. There's a similarity right there. See? We're bonding on this, okay?
Well, we're not
it's
throwing.
Same.
We're catapulting.
Well, we were, unfortunately, real miscreants. Or, I should say, I followed the lead. I'm not without blame. But, I was certainly coerced into bad behavior by my friends. But we had a thing. It can happen. I'm a poster child for that. We had a thing that we called shitbags. And what we would do is, I think their mother had one of these...
Size of pouches?
I suppose we would have called it that. We just went with shitbags. But she had one of these, like, plastic things that you buy on TV where you seal your food into plastic bags and then they'll last forever, that kind of thing.
Oh, sucks
right?
the air out.
Exactly. It was like one of these things. So we had all these plastic bags and a way to seal them. So we started just kind of like putting whatever we wanted, whatever we could find from the fridge into the bag. And be that ketchup and mustard and jelly and eggs and whatnot. And it would be a pretty big Ziploc bag by the end of it, and full and brown, because everything mixed together just comes into brown. So we went to the top of what was possibly still is the tallest building in town, which I think was 11 stories, a hotel.
Woo!
Yeah, 11 whole stories. And we went to the top of the building, and we tossed this out, and it hit the sidewalk, and splattered probably, I want to say 35 feet in every direction. And it was pretty glorious. It looked like Godzilla vomited all over the street. I don't know if you've heard this, but Governor Cuomo? Mayor, it used to be Mayor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo, I guess, is the new one, right?
For a while.
I go back to Mario. When I think of Cuomo, I think of Mario. Yeah, but Governor Cuomo has announced that New York movie theaters can reopen starting March 5th, which is about 2 weeks, I think, at 25% capacity. Is the deal. And, of course, all of the other guidelines and protocols, whatnot. But since that is what I do, I manage an independent movie theater in Manhattan. My story here is that I'm going to go back to work, it looks like, after a whole year.
How excited are you?
I don't think there's a number that I could really put to that. Frankly, it's literally been a year since I've worked. Not because of my own choice, but it is literally been a year since I've walked into a building and worked for someone else. So it'll be interesting to get, I'm sure there'll be a learning curve.
You're not excited?
I'm excited about returning to quote unquote normalcy. I'm excited about seeing people again in a limited capacity, obviously, but it's been obviously for everybody, it's been a very unusual year, and mine has been spent mostly in isolation because that's what we're supposed to do. So yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to get back into that grind.
Well, are you getting used to no alarm clocks and kind of waking up when you so choose and going to bed when you so choose?
Well, all those things are true, but I wouldn't say that I
said gotten used to. Not.
Have I gotten used to? I suppose I've gotten used to.
I didn't say enjoying or began to enjoy.
Right. then yes, I have definitely gotten used to that. But
Will the popcorn machine be running?
oh, of course,
Well,
of
then
course.
that's what it's all about.
And here's, I mean, what I'm thinking. My first thought here was
Popcorn?
no, was actually guests. You know, I'll be back to mingling with people who make movies and stuff. And I did a podcast. I used to secure guests, celebrity guests, filmmakers and actors and whatnot, simply by asking them, not going through a publicist, but just literally
Saying, hey, Tom and Rita.
Zach,
Hey, Chris.
Maybe. You remember Zach Galligan from the Gremlins movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was at my theater doing a screening of a new movie, and I got to rap it with him, and he was a really swell guy. And I said, hey, you know what? I do a podcast. And would you have an interest in coming on? He's like, of course I would. So we did it. We did a live little thing with him. And so my point is, if we decide we want to have some guests on our podcast here, I'll have a lot more access to them than I have at the moment, which is basically my family is who I have access to. Not that there's anything wrong with having my family on the show. I'm just talking. I'm really interested in I don't have access to the metrics for the YouTube, the people who listen to us on YouTube, but I do have the metrics for the other podcasts, Spotify, etc. I get the breakdown on demographics and all this stuff, and I'm really fascinated by it because I would imagine our demographic is American, which it is, 95% or whatever. But we've also picked up listeners from France, Germany,
Canada,
thank you,
Vietnam,
and Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the idea that there's someone. I mean, I love the idea that there are people we don't know listening to this. I love that there are people we do know listening to this also. But just the idea that maybe somebody sitting in a room somewhere hears our voices and likes it.
That a lot of what we're talking about and experience is universal, sort of. Not it's the biggest thing in the world and blah, but that things that matter to us also matter to someone halfway around the world.
I think so. Even when we're talking about specific things like our hometown, and I think those things translate. I also want to say that we seem to have some really incredibly loyal listeners because we always get...
Thank you
so much. We always get, within the first hour of uploading, we always get several views or listens, which I think is just loyalty. And it tickles me to no end. So, yes, as Mary said, thank you. Thank you for listening. That's all. So now you say you're welcome. Take a second here. All right, now we're good.
Okay.
So,
let's see, what else is new in the world?
There's a lot of stuff going on. There's Texas. Texas is still in a bit of a pickle.
Yes.
With no power.
Most people have power now, but still on boiling.
Yeah.
But if you can't access water, and they said they were taking pool water from people's houses to use for their lavatories, and I think even for bathing, for some of that, people were melting snow, which in the Living Off the Grid show that I enjoy so much, truly, that's one of the things that the outdoor bathtubs where they'll just take like a trough and kind of raise it up a bit and then just start a fire underneath it to heat the water, their bath water.
Mm-hmm.
And this one gal had lavender that she grew on the property and something else. It's like, how nice does that sound? Just out in the middle of the wild with trees around and all that fresh air in your fire-heated tub with fresh lavender.
And I would guess probably at least half of the people in the world do that all the time. I mean, maybe not half, but a lot of people don't have access to the water that we have. So, yeah, I mean, people take baths together or cook in the same water they're shaving in and whatnot.
I learned something kind of icky recently.
Okay.
Sorry about the bad word. When we were having our washing machine looked at, which we had to have replaced, but our new dishwasher, I hadn't been too tickled with that by any means. And so the gentleman who's looking at the dishwasher, we have the same brand, same style, same model of dishwasher he has. And he loves it. So he took me through a few things. And he showed me the bottom tray. Did you know there's like a little tank at the bottom of it?
Okay.
So you take out the bottom rack, you turn this thing, and it's a filter. I didn't know there was a filter that needed to be cleaned in the dishwasher either. It's probably somewhere in the book on page 12, and I read to page 11. I try. Those things are dry. And so then he showed me the water. When you wash your dishes, the first time you use it, it's all clean water. But then after that, the water that is used to wash the dishes is the leftover rinse water from the previous wash.
Okay.
So you get clean rinse water, but you're washing your and you can look in there, and it's cloudy water. So you're washing your dishes with pre-dirtied water.
I have
So
to,
then he taught me once a month or so, put 2 cups of vinegar in there, and
that works?
wash it, keep it fresh. But I did not appreciate learning that economically and to save on water, it's a beautiful thing.
I have to say that
But-
I never actually used a dishwasher on a regular basis.
Well, that's just weird.
I guess. I mean, I would use my hands and a sponge. You know, one of those sponges that have a gritty side and a spongy
Yeah.
side, and I just do it
We-
that way, the old-fashioned way. So far, it hasn't been a problem.
We
But-
have a lot of dishes. Now I still end up hand washing the pots and pans, and there's glassware and such, and storage containers and certain things that should not be put in the dishwasher. So I end up with steak knives that shouldn't be put in the dishwasher because of the wooden handles.
Mm.
Those kinds of things. Spatulas that shouldn't go in there.
I had no idea it was so complicated. I would have.
I know.
That's why I shouldn't have one. I would just throw everything in there. And
Cast iron
wash.
skillet? No.
No dice. That and so I'm not so stupid that I would think that's the one thing I probably wouldn't, or I would ask you first. But I definitely.
The cast iron?
Yeah.
Actually, it's a
That's
cast
kinda
iron grill pan. So when it's too cold, like all of this snow, and you want to grill vegetables, steaks, whatever. Pineapple. I love grilled pineapple. I have my cast iron grill pan.
Oh sure. Watermelon. You can grill
Griddle pan.
watermelon. You can.
Grill pan. Yeah, grill. No, I've never tried that. Perhaps
you can put
next
don't
season.
you don't.
This summer I shall.
10 seconds on each side. It gets a nice little.
Imagine it'd have to be a pretty
Yeah,
thick
I miss
slice
grill-
this so it didn't fall apart.
Exactly. You're getting it. See, you're getting it. You could do this. You could grill watermelon with only a couple of tries.
I can do
You're almost
this.
there. Oh yeah, you got this.
I would try it on the
I
grilled
miss
pan
grilling.
before the actual grill so it didn't fall down in. That'd be messy.
I used to grill in the backyard a lot. Not a lot, I should say. Maybe every weekend in the summer. I really miss that.
Can you have a little grill where you are?
Well, the thing is, I'm not anywhere now. I'm sort of in between.
But you're somewhere.
Well, I am. Yes.
You're not where you want to end up, but you are somewhere. You could get a little grill.
But I do not have access to a grill or anything like that. But I'm going to tell you the story. The reason I am where I am right now. This is what happened. Not just because of the pandemic, but I needed a roommate. So an acquaintance of mine, I'm not going to use names here, but let's just call him Mark. He needed a place to stay, so I said, hey, I've got a spare room here. You can, and everything was peachy until about a week or two into this. I realized I was washing the dishes, and I have one of those plastic strainers on the side of next to the sink where you put your finished clean dishes. And I noticed that all of the dishes in the strainer were dirty, and I don't mean dirty like a little piece of food that is still stuck on there even after you scrubbed it, because that happens. I'm talking, it looked like one dipped their hands in butter and then wiped it all over the plates. That's what it looked like.
Nasty.
Okay, so next time yeah. And very peculiar, too. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he just doesn't understand. So next time I saw him, I said, oh, Mark, by the way, just so you know, this strainer here is for the clean dishes, the ones that have already been washed. And he said, yeah, I know. And I said, well, oh, all the dishes that you washed are not clean. Now, if I were to say that to you or any other normal person, your response will probably be like, oh, wow, I had no idea. I'm so sorry about that. I'll be more careful. His was the opposite, which was he got very defensive and said, I don't know what you're talking about, because I've had friends tell me that they've never seen anybody clean dishes the way I do. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, that was the first red flag. Okay, might be a little mental thing going on here, because I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation in my life where anybody's praised me for my dishwashing abilities. That's not something that really comes up in conversation.
I have.
So, you have. Okay. I stand corrected.
I know.
I want to hear about your dish. I want to hear what you did to earn that. But in this
Thorough.
case, I think he was just completely nuts. So I also discovered he was a hoarder. And when I say hoarder, I'm talking hoarder like the TV show.
Yeah.
And and he had one room, and it filled up immediately because he would bring every night. He'd come home with shopping bags full of God knows what, and they would just accumulate. Long story short, he was there for a long time. There were other problems with him as well, and it finally came to a head, and I gave him an eviction notice. I said, look, I need you to leave. This isn't working out. Here's 30 days notice. If you need more time, let me know, and we'll work something out. Completely ignored me. completely decided he was not going to move out. He was not going to speak to me again. He was not going to pay me rent. So I went through the entire New York housing court system for about 8 months.
And I'll bet that was fun.
I still have nightmares about that. I was watching. I shouldn't say I was watching a documentary last night, totally unrelated. In it, there was a scene where one of the people in the documentary went into the New York housing court, and I started shaking when I saw that. Anyway, slowly get him evicted, which means another 30 days, and then another 30 days, and finally a sheriff came to physically remove him, which is what you have to do, and they did that. The only cathartic part of that was that when the sheriff came to oust him, he was completely unaware it was going to happen. So he'd probably been asleep for 2 hours, and then suddenly there's a little knock. And I just had to play on a loop for the entire time that he was being thrown out, the Rolling Stones song Out of Time, which after about the third or fourth go-round, he realized it was playing on a loop. And then I started singing and dancing, and this was 8 months of complete... I was living in terror.
Now, why did you not just take his stuff, box it up, put it outside, and change the locks?
It's against the law. I would have been thrown in jail. That is actually the case. It is against the law to change the locks. It's against the law to do anything to his stuff. In New York, the laws favor the tenant, which is a great thing because landlords otherwise bulldozer over people. So it's great. But here's the thing. In this particular instance, I was the landlord. I don't own the place, but I had the lease for the apartment, and he was my tenant. Therefore, I was a landlord, he was a tenant. So the laws favored him. So he could literally do nothing, not pay me rent for 8 months, and I couldn't do anything about it. I had to go through the slow process of going through the courts, and it was literally 8 months.
That's kind of nutty.
Meanwhile, I was being evicted because I couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't pay the entire rent, and the landlord doesn't care about this tenant situation. It's like the rent is on me. So meanwhile, I'm going to court to get him evicted, and then the next day I'd go to court to prevent myself from being evicted. Complete nightmare. Lasted up until December, I think, maybe, of a year ago, a year or so. And at that point, I'd completely drained all of my money because I was paying full month's rent. So I was down to zero.
Not that you ever would have gotten any money from him, but did you file a civil suit?
I did, and here's...
Just so that it would sit on his record?
I did, and here's what... Stupidly, I missed the court date. It was like the third court date because he postponed it, and then somebody else postponed it, and then I wrote the date down wrong, and the whole week I was looking forward to this. It's like Thursday. Okay, Thursday the 19th, fantastic. I'll be there. I knew exactly everything I was going to say. I had photographs. I had everything. No problem. And then I'm looking through my notes, and I see, it's the 15th. Wait, it was yesterday? And my... So the thing is, it would have been dismissed without prejudice, so I could do it again. I mean, I could certainly sue him again. But during that, when I filed the lawsuit against him, I got contacted by People's Court, the TV show, the People's Court, and they wanted me to be on. Yeah, and I was like, of course, I'd love to do this. And the deal was they pay for everything because it's illegally binding. You sign something, so it's legally binding, but whatever judgment you get, they pay for. So production pays for it, in other words.
Yeah.
So Mark wouldn't do it. He didn't want to do it. And I said, look, dude, this is your only shot because we both know you owe me that money. There's really nothing you can say. We know that I'm going to win. So you've got two options here. If I win in a regular court, you owe me $5,000. Actually, you owe me $6,000, but $5,000 is the cutoff for how much you can sue for. I said, if we go to People's Court, you will lose, and they will pay for it. You'll be completely off the hook. What's the problem there? Well, I'm not going to do it because you've been on television before, so you would have a better demeanor. Dude, the reason I'm going to win is because you don't have a case. So, I really think the reason he knew that I would expose him as a hoarder and all that stuff, and I think the embarrassment was probably too much for him. Yeah. Public shame. But yeah, so where that stands is I messed up and missed my court date, and that was about a year ago. I moved out January 1st. With the idea of doing the Airbnb for a month or 2 months, a couple of days here, a couple of days there, and then I would have enough money to rent an apartment. Because in New York, probably like anywhere else, you're required to put up last month's rent and also a security deposit. So you're basically paying $3,000 if it's a
Yes.
$1,000 apartment. So then the pandemic hit. Shortly after that, I lost my job
Which then
and
means income.
ended up, which was completely yes. And then, as we know, the government futzed around with unemployment and all that stuff. And finally, there was a short period of time where I was making enough money and only isolating anyway, so it was fine. But I was also paying $400 a week for an Airbnb, which was nice. It was a nice, it was basically a hotel room in Bushwick.
Bushwick, yes. Okay.
But at the end of this was probably 3 or 4 months, like the main part of the pandemic. I stayed.
Yes, the cigar. How you talked about mobs before and this and that, and I was watching a show. Sorry to interrupt, but throw this out and then we'll go back to yours. Whatever his name, blah blah blah, the cigar from the Bonanno family.
Okay.
Who was?
Oh, cigar was his nickname.
Yeah, because he always had a cigar in his mouth, and he and some of his guys were eating at an Italian restaurant, and they went out front and got blown away by people in their own family.
Oh.
And they, of course, they show the picture of this man, and I've seen it before. So there he is, slumped, and his head's propped, cigar still in his mouth, in Bushwick. Can't tell you the name of the restaurant. You'll have to look it up. If it's still around, you'll have to go there sometime and just be like, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, seeing as you had the other mob experience, you're blessed with fame with
the Manhattan mob.
Uh-huh.
Vinny the Chin.
If it's still open, dine at the restaurant in Bushwick. Kind of go and stand on the spot where it all happened. Just keep your mob tour going. Okay, now I apologize.
Yeah.
I had thought about that when I was watching, and it's like, I need to mention that to Lee.
They have mob tours in New York where you pay and go to all these different places like that. It was a Sparks Steakhouse brutal rub out where they just shot this guy coming out of his car or going into his car or something.
Sounds like a fun thing.
Yeah, well, as long as the thing about the mafia is they usually just killed each other.
Yeah.
Unlike some of these modern day gangs, they're a little more indiscriminate, but usually you didn't see people getting caught in the crossfire with these guys. It was the guy gets rubbed out and that's it. But not to defend the mafia necessarily, but there was a certain amount of decorum, I think, to what they were doing. But yeah, no, so the story just basically ends with me being, I was in a hotel room in Bushwick for as long as I could, and then when the money finally ran out, I was literally down to $100 and no prospect of anything when they were completely playing around when there was no stimulus at all.
Yeah.
And even unemployment, I think, had been. So basically, the unemployment I was getting at that point wasn't enough to pay for my hotel room. So I contacted a friend of mine. Said, hey, do you possibly have a couch I could surf on for a couple of weeks, which now has turned into a couple of months, but absolutely generous, and I owe him forever for letting me do this. So
slumping, as my teenage son would say.
Slumping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not crashing or crashing, it's slumping. So
slumping.
There I've given y'all a new word.
Is there one that sounds, because slumping still sounds kind of like I'm a burden on society or something?
Well, no, when he's going to another friend's house, okay, what time you planning to be home? Well, we're hoping just that I could just slump there. Okay.
Is it maybe a regional thing, or is it a thing that kids?
I have
teenagers.
Teenagers. There you go.
I'll ask my teenagers about it. That's one I haven't heard yet.
We'll see if it's made it to the coast yet.
Yeah, I think trends usually start in the middle, don't they?
Yes.
In America, and they kind of spread
it's
to the.
About time it's realized.
I think disco began in Iowa, from what I remember, and slowly took over the coast.
Do we want to take credit because Prohibition came out of Kansas, so we don't always want to recognize everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes, but now with the internet, where we get good sources for all kinds of stuff, it doesn't take as long. It's not so much it starts on the coast or in Europe and finally makes its way. You always know what the style is or the latest stuff. Can you always get it here? In the boutiques, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are boutiques here where they go to the big
they're
cities.
Called boutiques?
No, boutiques.
Okay.
Where they go shopping and they go to the shows in the big cities and they order at the same time as y'all city folk.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that is 100% true. And I think that the internet has probably changed human civilization more than any other invention, maybe even the wheel. I don't know if that's a crackpot theory, but it seems like, obviously we're not all on the same page, but things like trends. Yeah, trends are pretty instantaneous now.
Mhm.
Somebody in Iowa has access to the same websites that somebody in Paris has, or whatever. So,
Yes. Which can be good and bad, depending upon the website, as we all know.
but it's the potential is there, which wasn't there. Like when you and I were growing up, that wasn't the case at all.
Oh, no. No, no,
I mean,
no.
I think it's hilarious that disco was pretty big in Nebraska. I think, right? I mean, at least like the roller skating rink and whatnot. But people had no idea what the Village People meant, right? I mean, there was no. I mean, it's pretty obvious. These guys are gay icons, and Greenwich Village is a traditionally free-spirited neighborhood of New York, but that completely escaped people, right? Did you know anybody who knew?
I didn't know about
Yeah.
Greenwich Village, but
Or just the idea of the Village People were that they were a gay band. And
Yes.
the songs were about gay things. I mean, about things
Yes.
in the Navy and YMCA.
the YMCA. Come
But
on
that
now.
completely escaped me. And the reason I know that is because I know homophobic people, and there would have been people who, at the time, would have been like, oh, you listen to Village People? But nobody was like that. Everybody was doing the frickin' YMCA stuff.
The one thing that always got me is people who put their C backwards. You don't put your C so it's the correct way for you. You put your C so it's people
Right.
who are looking at you.
Right,
It's
to the left.
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Beyonce summed it up later on, to the left, to the left. You know what I'm saying? She was a few years behind on that whole thing, but she told us.
All right. We've got a lot to learn from B.
That's right.
Is it B? Is that her nickname? No, what's her? Beyonce. What do we say when we don't have time to say Beyonce? Like Les Mis. What do we say? We have to say something short.
That
Bay. Oh, Bay. That's what it is.
Bay. There you
Bay.
go. You got it. I knew there was something.
Bay. Yeah, I don't have time for 2 syllables. 3, I guess.
No.
Anyway.
But that's kind of the thing with Christina. She didn't gain anything with X-Tina as far as saving time.
Mm.
I don't like that X-Tina thing, though, to be honest with you. If you think about it, I'm not digging it.
I read recently, I assume this is true, because once again I did read it on the internet, but you were offended because it's taking the word Christ, Christian. But however, the X is actually the Greek, so it comes from the Greek. So it's not a...
No, that would just be Kai.
It isn't a dismissal of Christ. I'd have to look it up again, but
the X
represents Christ.
X
for some reason.
is just Chi, C-H-I, in Greek letters.
I don't know. I may look like a frat boy. I'm not a frat boy, so I don't know any of these things.
Yeah, it's just C-H-I.
Someone accused me of being a frat boy. That's why I said that. I don't know. I think, the little logo for our podcast, drawings I did of you and myself, and I guess because I'm wearing my baseball cap on backwards, that signifies that I'm a bro, or I'm a...
For real?
Yeah. Yeah, someone
Huh.
left that comment on one of our videos, one of our podcasts. Who is this guy? Is he some sort of a frat boy or what?
I guess I did see that.
I don't know. Am I? Thanks for the question. Keep those cards and letters coming, people. Appreciate feedback, especially
Send them to
totally random, unrelated, semi-insults.
Send
But,
him to the
whatever.
restaurant in Bushwick, and Lee can pick him up when he gets there.
Yeah, praise us, insult us. We don't care. We just want you to be happy. So if it makes you happy,
Well,
how can
there's
it be
one
all
thing I
bad?
might not appreciate.
No.
I mean, if somebody in the drawing said it looks like I have cankles,
Yeah. See, one thing I've learned.
but
I think
I got little heels.
nobody said you have cankles.
Not yet. No, I said that's what if someone said.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't.
You don't. Of course you don't. I'll fight anybody who says you do. I mean, if I get a look at them first, within a certain size and age range.
Yeah,
Some restrictions will apply, of course.
indeed. So what has been going on in the world?
Besides, there's Florida. We mentioned last week, of course, that Rush Limbaugh died, and this week the governor DeSantis decided that he was going to make them fly their flags at half-mast in honor of Rush Limbaugh. But the mayors are refusing.
Go Mayors.
Yeah. They're like, nah, that's okay. We'll go ahead and not do that.
You can do that at your own home. But, keep those ideas coming.
Right.
Ricky.
Why don't you fly your Confederate flag at half-mast?
No doubt.
DeSantis.
You know what would be fantastic? Rainbow flags.
Oh.
And feminist, like bra burnings and stuff all around.
There aren't enough bra burnings anymore. That doesn't seem to be a thing anymore.
Yeah,
is
you
it
know,
because
it's not-
Is it because they make them with more on polyurethane or whatever they? It has to be some reason.
I don't know. I do know a lot of people have switched a lot to, whenever possible, just sports bras. because they're comfy and call it a day.
Uh-huh.
I would imagine. Haven't you seen those commercials?
I
Mom,
don't.
you need, and then they don't say the name, or I'm not going to say the name. Mom, you need Lively. Babe, you need Live. Can you fix my strap? And then they all brag about how comfortable they are and this and that, and you don't get the lines, and they get rid of the back fat that apparently women have, and all kinds of stuff. So, science.
Science. I remember the Jane Russell ads in the 70s. Those were, remember?
Nope.
Yeah, Jane Russell, I think they made it, the claim was that they made a bra just for her because she was so...
Buxom?
Yes, buxom.
Buxom.
Yes.
I imagine that was an ad that probably appealed to a teenage boy more than a young teenage girl at that point. To have some buxom woman who was a movie starlet pushing brassiers.
Sure. I mean, wow. Yeah, we were a little hard-pressed for that kind of thing. Frankly, when you were 13, back then, Battle of the Network Stars is pretty much as close to pornography as you get.
Do you remember Circus of the Stars?
I certainly do, yeah.
Here's a funny story. I'm going to share it. One of my uncles, the high school that he had attended, he was being inducted into the Football Hall of Fame. And so we all went for the banquet, family get together. And I switched our name tags, which was fun. So when he went up to speak, he was wearing my name tag. Just a cute little fun aside. He didn't care at all. But one of his classmates, who he had graduated with, was, and now why can't I say his name? Bernie, the guy who played Bernie in Weekend at Bernie's. Terry.
Oh, okay.
Terry.
I just saw him in something the other night. I don't remember
They
his name.
were, like best buds in high school. And
okay.
he was supposed to go there to speak, but he couldn't because he was training for Circus of the Stars, and he had the lion taming act.
Oh.
And so his whole speech thing had been recorded while he was in the thing, like right by with the lions. And it was fun to have this guy just sitting there chit-chatting about all their fun that they had in high school with lions.
Holding a chair and a whip.
And then making fun of himself later. That how would he ever have known that his biggest role would be playing a dead guy? Which he did very well. Very well. Movies are still funny. I
sure.
still
The
think
two movies. People forget he was dead twice.
Yeah. Mom always said find something you're good at and stick with it.
That's right.
Terry Kaiser?
That sounds right. I saw him in a movie called Tammy and the T-Rex, which you're not going to believe me when I describe this movie to you, but I'm going to go ahead and try it anyway. Paul Walker. Remember Paul Walker?
Mm-hmm.
From the Fast and the Furious
Fast
movies?
and Furious.
Is,
and
Too Fast.
She's All That.
Furious.
He was in She's All That.
You're right. This, I believe, predates those, or else it was certainly predates Fast and the Furious, but when he was just kind of a heartthrob, hunk type of guy. And he's in a movie called Tammy and the T-Rex, where he and Denise Richards, who later became Mrs. Charlie Sheen, of course, our boyfriend and girlfriend, he gets killed by a gang of high school students or whatever, and an evil scientist decides to take his brain, because they could save his brain for some reason, the rest of his body was
well, of course.
Yeah, his brain was fine. So they put his brain into an animatronic dinosaur. Not a dinosaur, but an animatronic one, like you'd find at a theme park. So it's an animatronic T-Rex with Paul Walker's brain in it. And
okay.
And Denise Richards is still in love with him. So it's kind of a King Kong type of thing, Beauty and the Beast type of thing. But it's Paul Walker. Did you get the part about his brain is in an animatronic T-Rex?
Yeah. So we have the biological, physiological crossing over into
yes. And Terry, I think, is the scientist. That's why I brought it up. Terry.
That might have been one that you left off your resume.
You might have. I'm sure Paul Walker did. I'm sure he did at that point.
Kind of like, I understand that Jennifer Aniston doesn't like when people bring up
Leprechaun.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you gotta do something for work. It's just that those things can come back and nip you in the bud.
I find it, actors who are ashamed of early roles I did, I got no time for it. Because, like, dude, you did it, and 99% of working actors are never get a role that people will ever know. So,
but there could be a difference between being ashamed and being embarrassed, and it could be the movie in totality or total. It could be their performance, that they were not at the top of their game. I mean, Kelly Ripa makes fun of herself when she was on All My Children. Bless her, she wasn't good. I think her character's name was Haley, and she came in and she was a goth kid, kind of blah blah blah. but she would say that the producers or whomever behind the show would come in and say, oh, yeah, we're having these acting coaches come in. So if you're interested, Kelly, they should be here on these days. And they have, so, if you're available at this time, Kelly. And so she makes fun, that kind of situation. It could be where she just has fun making fun of herself and her ability at the time. It isn't ashamed. That's where she met her husband, but it's not, admittedly her best work.
Well, that's a good attitude to have. Viggo Mortensen, for instance, his first movie role was Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3. He has no problem talking about it. Anytime he's interviewed, he said if it hadn't been for that movie, I wouldn't have got my next movie. So, yeah. And he's got nothing to be ashamed of in his performance because he did what he was supposed to do. So contrast that with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger, who were both in Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 4. And they did that, I think, the same time that they did Dazed and Confused. And then there was something else. Oh, she did Jerry Maguire, I think, immediately after, before they'd released it. And so her people and McConaughey's people put pressure on the company to not release it. So it didn't get released for several years because they didn't want it to interfere with their superstardom. I'm like, you took the money, and it's insulting to everybody else who worked on that project and worked really hard on that project for you to say, oh, it's beneath me. And I've seen Matthew McConaughey's performances and other things, and it's not worse than that. So,
now, was it the stars that were trying to get it prevented? Was it their managers and agents, and everybody was behind?
Well, nobody knows for sure, but speculation is that it was the agency. They were both owned by the same agency. Well, no, someone did it.
You can't bag on them as individuals if you don't know. That's not fair.
Well, no.
Let me say you shouldn't.
The story that came out, and I'm just repeating it, but the story that came out is that they were responsible for it. Their agency put the pressure on them, and neither of them will talk about that movie in any interview. They just refuse to talk about it. Viggo Mortensen.
Does that have anything to do with everything that happened legally? Are they not supposed to? Do we know?
No, there was nothing legal. It wasn't officially stopped. It was just sort of halted, and it did come out, I think, 2 or 3 years later. And it's horrible. It's nowhere near as good as the first one, or even the second one, or even the third one. It's a bad movie. But I think if it had been a good movie, they still would have been quote unquote embarrassed about it because it wasn't a Hollywood movie. I mean, there's so many actors, like you said, Jennifer Aniston, who got their start in low budget horror movies because that's what happens.
The job was there.
The job was there, yeah. And you cash the check. My friend used to do there used to be a magazine called Fangoria, which was the horror movie magazine. And a friend of mine wrote a column for that called Skeletons in the Closet. And this is pre-internet. So, I mean, now it's all at our fingertips. But back then, you kind of had to dig to find these things. And the premise of the column was picking somebody who was well known now, who got their start in some obscure horror movie that they don't talk about anymore. So, yeah, so he exposed Jennifer Aniston, and Leonardo DiCaprio is in Critters, or Critters 2 or something. Pretty much everybody, pretty much everybody.
Why don't I remember any of that?
Oh, the Critters was kind of a Gremlins ripoff. When Gremlins was big, suddenly there were all of these
I remember that.
little creature movies. Yeah.
I don't remember Leo.
Oh, he was a kid. I think he was either the first one or the second one. I'm not sure, but he's a kid, 11 or 12. Jessica Lange is the worst of all that. I love King Kong, the 76 movie. I know it's awful. I know why it's awful. I get it. But the fact that I was there opening night when I was 10 and watched it twice and just loved it. I know its flaws, but whatever. I love it unapologetically, unironically. And 2 times now I've attempted to get, back when I was collecting autographs somewhat, on 2 occasions I attempted to get Jessica Lange to sign my King Kong DVD, which had already been signed by Jeff Bridges, who was wonderful about the whole thing. Doesn't mind talking about King Kong whatsoever. She refused twice.
Why?
The first time was at a stage door on Broadway, and they did the, she's only signing playbills type of thing. But when she came out, she saw me, and I was holding this King Kong DVD. She reminds me of Cruella de Vil, is what she reminds me of. She pointed with this long, bony finger, she pointed and said, "Oh, I won't sign that." You cashed the check. If it hadn't been for this movie, nobody would know you. I understand it's your first.
You sound bitter.
Come on. It's just ridiculous bitter. Because I contrast it with Jeff Bridges, who not only entertained my stupid fanboy question at the time, which was, do you think Jack and Dwan would still be together? He could have just said, oh, yeah, I suppose, maybe. Oh, who knows? And then, next. But instead he thought about it. And he said, you know what? I think they would. I think they would because everything they went through, the traumatic experience they went through in that movie, had to be so... The dude took my stupid question seriously, which was great. But then, on top of that, he said, oh, you know what? I pitched them a sequel idea. I wrote a treatment for a sequel to King Kong. Here's how it went. And the dude, tells me for like 5-10 minutes this whole involved story that he wrote for a King Kong sequel that the studio turned down and it never got made. But he was so into it too, because people probably don't ask him about King Kong too much because they think he doesn't want to talk about it. But he was like remembering this, and he got so animated and was just so excited about telling me this story. Contrast that with Jessica Lange. Oh, I won't sign that.
But see, I don't remember. I remember bits about the movie, but I don't remember him being in it.
Oh yeah.
But as you just said, that was something that was meaningful to him. He was excited about it, so of course he's going to sign it.
Well,
if it's something that doesn't, I don't know. I'm not going to hold everybody accountable for signing something for everything they've ever done. Well, I could see if it was something that was important to you, that it could bother you. Yeah, I can see that completely.
Well, I will tell you this. I shared this story with Rick Baker. Rick Baker is the guy who created the Kong costume and actually played Kong, although we're not supposed to know that because we're supposed to think it was a giant animatronic Kong. It was really Rick Baker in a costume which he built. So he plays King Kong. I related that story to him, and he gave me another story. So we exchanged, and I'm not going to say it, we exchanged Jessica Lange is a C-word stories. So It ain't just me. It ain't just me. So Jessica, if you're hearing this, sign my fucking DVD, would you? At this point, I don't care.
Would you really want it signed at this point?
At this point, I don't care. The second time was she was doing it was like a book fair type of thing, and she was one of the featured guests who she put out a book of photography. And it's a nice book. It's like this big coffee table book of black and white photography. And she was there and talking about it and doing Q&A, and then she did a signing afterwards. And so I brought my DVD, and I asked probably 3 or 4 different people who were working there, what's the situation? Will she sign anything besides the book? And so the first story I got was, yes, she will sign one item in addition to the book. I said, okay, awesome. So then I asked another person, do I have to buy the book? The book was $75, and that's something I wanted in the first place. They said yes. Then they said no. But then as I'm in line and I'm not holding the book, somebody else came up to me and said, oh, you have to buy the book. And I said, well, I'll buy the book if she'll sign this for me as well. Can you confirm before I drop $75 that she'll do that? So they went around and came back. Yes, she will do that. Okay, thank you. I go back out. I drop $75 on this book that I don't want. Come back in, get online, get up to, I'm probably 3 people from the front of the line. Someone else steps in and says, oh, she won't sign that. And I was like, 4 people just told me she would. The only reason I bought this book is because they said she would. No, she won't. Okay. So I back, returned the book, got a refund, and I went home without a smile on my face.
Are you going to give up on this signing thing? Do you, at this point, do you really, really want it signed?
No, not by her.
Or did you pursue it just because?
No,
she told you no.
No, the first time.
Well, I'm not talking about the first time.
Right. The second time I went because I figured, okay, the excuse the first time was she only signs playbills. And that's happened to me before, where it's like, oh, we have a rule. We're only going to sign playbills. I'm sorry, I can't sign anything else. Okay. I thought, well, this situation, though, it's like if she was at an autograph convention where you pay to get autographs. It's like that's what she was doing there. She's signing autographs. Didn't seem like I was completely coming out of left field by asking her to sign an autograph. I hate the whole idea that, okay, she was a serious actor, she got Oscars, she married Sam Shepard, blah, blah, blah. But that's the film that you started with, and I honestly don't think she has anything to be ashamed of. I don't know what the circumstances were for her getting the role. I don't know if, you know what I mean? I don't know if she has any bad memories. But that has nothing to do with me. I like the movie, and I'm not making fun of the movie by asking you to sign it. I actually love it unironic.
This really bothers you.
It does when I think about it.
Move stole.